Welcome to Cape Fear Business Roundtable. I'm Frank Williams, and our guest today is AJ Stanaland, who is with Northwest Land and Cattle. AJ, thank you for joining us. I do have to, in the interest of disclosure, point out that AJ is my cousin, so I am talking to someone I've literally known her entire life, and she's known me as long as she's been alive. We grew up next door to each other, and so we'll talk more about some of that in a little while. Before we dive in, I do want to mention both of our sponsors, which are two companies located under one roof here in Leland. The first is Pioneer Strategies, a public relations and strategic communication firm. Pioneer Strategies can help you with website design, logo design, digital advertising, or if you just need someone to manage your entire marketing or PR campaign. And the other is Pioneer Specialties, which is a promotional products distributorship. They have access to over 1 million products from 4,300 suppliers worldwide. And their websites are pioneerstrategies.com and pioneerspecialties.promo. And yes, that's the correct domain extension, pioneerspecialties.promo. So with that, we'll go ahead and dive on in. I usually ask people if they are from here or they're one of the people who moved here, but I know the answer to that with you. So let's go ahead and jump on past that, because obviously you grew up here. And tell us a little bit about the family history of your farm and how long this farm that you work on and that you manage has been in your family, and just any background related to it that you want to share.
Yes, that is one of my favorite things to talk about. I love family history and I love talking about it and listening to everybody else's. So what's really neat is we are in the Northwest city limits, so everybody gets confused with that, and it is in the northwest corner of Brunswick County.
Right.
I am fifth generation. The house I was raised in, my grandmother was born in. Very, we've just kind of been here in this community for a long time. But what I think is really neat is what I am doing is what I have listened to my granddaddy talk about
Right.
growing up. So he's 96 and he has forgotten more about cattle and hogs than I will ever know. But he used to raise hogs on the ground along the Cape Fear River with his dad.
Okay.
And then he married my grandmother, and then they combined two farming families, just like me and my husband have done. So just the history of all this. We found a map. 1898 is what is on there with the map. That's actually the parcel that we are on right now. So lots of family history, and we have the train might go by. I'm outside, but the train goes right through our farm, and a lot of people don't know, but it is the straightest railroad track this side of the Mississippi. So really
Yeah, I don't
cool.
think there's a curve between Wilmington and somewhere getting over close to Charlotte. It's maybe one or two curves, but it is a very long and straight line. And I got into an extensive online debate with someone a few years ago, trying to convince them that Northwest was in southeastern North Carolina. They swore to me it's in the mountains of North Carolina and that I was wrong. And I'm like, no, I grew up there. I think I know where it is. It is in the northwest corner of Brunswick County in southeastern North Carolina. And for those who don't know where Northwest is, if you're in Leland and you go west on Highway 74, you will turn right at the Mako intersection where there's the Bojangles and on one side and the Hardys on the other, and go to the end of that road and take a left, and Northwest Land and Cattle will be down on your right. Those are the directions I gave people to the house I grew up in. At one point, it was the only stoplight. That's changed a couple of times since then.
I
But
was gonna mention, can you believe that you just said a Bojangles and a Hardee's?
oh,
Like,
I remember when there was nothing there, nothing, no
yes.
stoplight, nothing. It was, nothing at all. But well, tell us before we get into talking more about your farm, what is your favorite non-work thing to either do or place to go in this part of the state? Something outside of what you do for a living that you enjoy doing here.
So it's not exactly what I do, but riding horses has always been my kind of favorite thing. And me and my husband have 9-year-old twins now,
Oh,
and our son has started rodeoing, and he runs with the North Carolina High School Rodeo. They have it from kindergarten to 12th grade, and so it's been fun to be able to combine my love of horses with his love of bringing him along with the horse journey too, and being able to watch him have opportunities that we wouldn't have had. There wasn't a lot of rodeos around here 20
Right.
years ago, but it's really neat. And then obviously the other thing is I love to travel. I love to come home. We live in the perfect spot. I can be from the cow barn to the beach in 20 minutes. So something on water. I love to paddleboard. So usually if I'm not working and not riding a horse in the summertime, I'm probably somewhere in a body of water.
That sounds like a lot of people I know in this area. Well, let's talk a little bit about your career. Obviously, a lot of people grow up in agriculture and then go get a job doing something else and don't stay in agriculture. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to stay in this arena and do what you do, and what drew you to make this your career.
It's funny because I can say it's took a long time to get here, but I finally feel like I'm doing my dream job.
Right.
So I've never wanted to do anything but farm, and I followed my dad and grandpa around everywhere. And it's funny, my mom went back to work when I was supposed to start preschool, and she enrolled me in a little preschool down the road. And she didn't know, but I wasn't going, right? Like either I wouldn't go, or the year I started preschool, my granddaddy retired. And so he would just come get me. So they finally asked her one time, and they were like, "Oh, she hasn't been in weeks." I was checking cows somewhere with Charlie. But I attended NC State University,
Go
and
Wolfpack! I can say go Wolfpack.
yes, yes, and came back to farm. Always had a passion for agriculture, and it's taken a long time to get here, but a lot of ups and downs. And I used to sell whole hogs to restaurants 10 years ago. Me and dad were raising a lot of cattle at one time, doing an operation completely different to where we were buying cattle at a lightweight, running them up, and then we would sell on video, and they would go to feedlots in Kansas. So we've kind of tried it all. And I married my husband. He's also a fifth generation farmer in Columbus County. And so then it's trying to figure out kind of what everybody is doing.
Right.
And so my dad and I were row cropping at the time, and we kind of like all shuffled around because my husband and my father-in-law, they had better equipment, they had all the things, and we were row cropping just a little bit of things compared to them. So we shuffled things around. They started doing all the row cropping. We opened up a sand pit business, and dad did all the day-to-day operations on
Right.
that. And then I kind of got the livestock of it with the help of everybody else. So it's kind of fun when you start entwining two families, but it worked out. I have a heck of a drive. I say I pass two stoplights and I drive 45 minutes home, and my hogs are in Columbus County. But kind of how we ended up with it. We had to sell our hogs. I went on bed rest with our twins. I was in the hospital 11 weeks. I had to drop everything. So about 2 years there, I was a stay-at-home mom. I was still
Right.
feeding cows, but that's all I was doing. And so my passion kind of got, I guess, started again whenever, you start feeding your kids stuff and all the things.
Right.
And we had friends. We love hosting and we love entertaining. And I'll never forget, we were having a big Friendsgiving. And Wade, my husband, he went to order a piece of meat online that we couldn't find in the store. And it was like a light bulb went off. And I was like, we really got to figure out how we can change the way that we've operated and be able to offer this to the public.
Well, and that's a great segue to what I wanted to talk about next, which is tell us a little bit about, what your business model is. Obviously, you're standing in front of the pack house sign. Tell us, about Northwest Land and Cattle, and how people can do business with you. Obviously, you've married technology to agriculture in some ways, and just talk a little bit about what you're doing, what you've done, and what you were just getting ready to lead into. I think that's a great segue.
Yes, of course. So, um, I started out online only. Very fortunate to now be in my, I say storefront, but I say it's really just a barn. Um, it was my great granddaddy's pack house. It was a tobacco pack house. And so we kept the name, and I was fortunate enough to get a small grant through the Tobacco Trust Fund to be able to get in here. But when I started, and you start thinking about harvesting an animal to sell to the public, I'll never forget this older man who I thought a lot of. And they always say don't take advice, from just to everybody. But I thought a
Right.
lot of him. And he said, everybody tries it. It never works out. You'll sell all the steaks and you'll be stuck with the rest of it. And so I really thought about that as far as like business model. And I wanted people to somehow feel connected to me and the farm. And it goes back to hearing Granddaddy talk about when he was young, they had a fish man that would come by and sell fish, and they had a milkman that would come by. And so I started figuring out, like, how do we get back to our roots? How do we get back to how agriculture used to be? Um, the average person now is so far removed from the farm.
Right.
And I'm so thankful for social media to be able to connect these people now because I can take them with me to feed cows. Um, so when I first started, I only did subscriptions. Everybody said I was crazy. But I wanted you to support my whole belief of the whole animal. And if we're going to harvest these animals, I think we need to eat all of them. So I started out with farm club subscriptions, and I didn't even tell you what was in the box. So I
The
promised you
kind of
two
Russian
premium.
roulette with cows.
Yes, exactly right. I kind of told you, I said you'll get two premium steaks. Depending on the time of year, you'll either get a roast or a grilling item, and then so much ground meat. And then I offered a discount for that, and the discount was for it being a subscription, just like we sign up for most things. Um, and I was blown away with the amount of support. And that I have been, people are still asking to get on that wait list. I found out real quick that you only get so many steaks per cow.
Right.
So I had to, cut that number off and go from there. And we do shipping. So we ship anywhere east of the Mississippi. So the support at first, I would say, might have been mostly online. And then now that I have a storefront, I am just so blessed that I'm continuing to grow and be able to be somewhere that you can come on a weekend or in the summertime during the week and be able to pick stuff up.
And tell us the address of your storefront for anyone who doesn't know where it is.
Yes, so it's going to be 5014 Northwest Road. And what's weird is we are almost to the county line. So you can type in Leland and it usually will bring it up. And sometimes it'll pop up Rigglewood and people will get really confused. But one side of the road, it's actually funny. Your side of the road
Yeah.
is Leland and our side of the road is Rigglewood. And looking across, I can see your dad's truck right now. Like that's how close we are.
Right.
But that's where we are, and we're open year round. And then every season, our hours change.
And talking about both sides of the road, when I was a kid, we had both mailboxes, one on each side, and my dad used the Regalwood mailbox because the mail came sooner in the day.
Yes,
Because we
and
had
it's
literally Regalwood route on one side and Leland route on the other side. But and yeah, the directions I give are if you go down 74, take a right at the Mako intersection, go till it dead ends, take a left, and then go past the first road, and it's the next driveway on the right. That's the simple
that's
directions to get there. But
that's exactly right. And it's funny, I actually changed my sign out front. I don't know, maybe 2 years in, because my old sign just said Northwest Land and Cattle, and like most people, they just thought I had cows in the pasture, and it didn't really say like come in, come shop.
right.
So we changed it and kind of redid it so you can see farm fresh meats now.
And how many cows do you have? And I know you said you have hogs. How many hogs do you guys have now?
I always tell people one too many. So when it comes to the feed bill, um, it's always one too many. But we're lucky enough we have them kind of strung out over 2 counties now. So um, I probably need to sell some. I'm really bad. I get it honest though. Like Granddaddy Charlie um, never wanted to sell a pretty heifer, right? Like
You wanted
we'll
to keep
keep
them, yeah.
her and put them in our breeding program. So I have been fortunate. We've been able to at least triple our herd since I have started in 2019. And then the hogs, kind of the same thing. We started years ago. I had a bunch. I said I would never have them on the ground again having babies, and here we go.
Here you
I
are.
actually here I am, crazy again. I just got done with a program through A&T University and the Tobacco Trust Fund, and we actually have to go up next week, I think, for graduation. But we went through a class for 6 months on how to raise ground raised hogs, and so it was really neat. So it was a part of a grant program, and hopefully, using everything I learned with that, I'll be able to really expand my hogs in the next year.
See, you've already covered some of the things I was going to ask. One thing, tell us a little bit about what sets your business apart from the other meats out there. Obviously, I know we've talked some about that in the past, and you at one point I think you told me you could probably tell me the name of the cow.
Yes, and it's funny when I first started. I didn't have that many customers, and I always would write handwritten notes in there. And so I started drawing, and I'm a horrible artist, so it looked the same every time. But I would start drawing a cow, and I would, say Stan, and I would be like, this is the cow of the month. And but I think it really comes down to, the general public wants to support small farmers, and I tell people all the time, like, they want to know that you are raising these animals to the best of your
Right.
ability, right? Like we give them the best life. And I think social media has helped that so much because I won't say everybody, but there used to be this, thing about farmers that, we weren't real educated or, like there was just this stigma about it. And I think now more than ever, social media has allowed us to get on here
Right.
and say, hey, I went to college for this. And, if you're going to trust, a doctor to do this and do this, trust your farmer to really raise the healthiest animal that you can. So what sets me apart in the beef world, though, I tell people, I just had to do a talk not long ago, and I was laughing because I said I used to kind of be ashamed because I kind of took everything we learned at school, because everything we learned at school was you're putting it together to make big truckloads, right? Like you're going to calve one time a year. All those are going to be the same exact weight. You're going to put them on a truck and you're going to sell them. And really, my like tagline has always been the new old fashioned way. And the reason I say that is I'm doing things like they used to. I don't per se, I have a month that I don't calve. But other than that, I'm almost calving year round because I have a standing slaughter appointment processing every month. And so to be able to do that, you have to have animals at that certain weight every single month. So it really takes a lot of planning and
Right.
a lot of weighing. And I know you said something about, technology and how we kind of incorporate that in now. And people have no clue the technology that we are able to use. Last summer I had interns here from NC State, and I have scales in my chute. And so sometimes every 2 weeks, we had weights on these cattle and we knew how much we were gaining per day. It's really neat to be able to have these resources, just to be able, you can still do it the new old fashioned way, and you can still,
Right.
I think, I love doing things the old fashioned way, but when you're able to do it better and add that technology in, I think that's when it steps it up a notch.
I like that, the new old fashioned way. And going back to the people who, maybe look down on farmers, one of my favorite quotes is from President Dwight D. Eisenhower. He said that farming looks mighty easy when you're 1,000 miles away and your plow is a pencil.
That's
And I think
exactly
that
right.
really sums it up. And I think most people who think farming is easy have obviously never tried it. I've got a friend, older man in another county, who has been a farmer and he got out of it for a while and he's back in it now. But he initially said, when I first tried this, I was not a very good farmer. It was harder than I thought, and I was not. He said, I decided to go do something else that was easier. And I think going back to supporting local farmers, I think one of the things that I'd like to see is Americans buy more food from Americans. I'd like to know that my meat came from North Carolina and not across the ocean, if possible, or my vegetables. And that's just, to me, that's so important. That's not just an economic thing; it's a food security thing. The ultimate food
And
insecurity is relying on countries that don't like us for what we eat every day.
I love that you said that because I have said it over and over again. Food security is national security. And
Absolutely.
me and my husband Wade were lucky enough to serve on a state committee for young farmers in North Carolina. And during that time, about 50 of us, young farmers from across the state, we went to Texas and we toured all over. An educational tour. And part of that was touring the border where the produce is coming in.
Uh,
And let me just say that if you ever tour that, you will start really looking at where things are coming from. And that's a great way to go into. We are getting, geared up. Come spring, we start offering our produce again. And what's really neat about that is my husband and I, we grow a lot of sweet corn, and we have a best friend up in Bladenborough that grows a lot of vegetables, but obviously everything isn't going to be right here.
right.
But I believe that as long as we're supporting the American farmer, we're supporting small farms. So I actually found a produce distributor that's coming out of one of the biggest farmers market on the East Coast in Columbia, South Carolina. And last year was our first year. This year, we're so excited to kind of do it bigger and better. But I was able to, the produce is going to that farmer's market straight off these farms. And he kind of puts it all together. I would put my order in, and he would come by here and deliver once to twice a week. And the quality of produce, I didn't even have to continue to advertise because people came every week because they
Right.
said this looks so amazing compared to what we're seeing elsewhere. And not that, I'm a big believer we don't put anybody in agriculture down. I don't care what it is. There's only 2% of us that is trying to feed the
Right.
world. So there's room for everybody. I will never put another farmer down, but I love being able to offer that and have people out. It's all under this old barn. I've got baskets. It's so my biggest thing is to keep that farm feel, because I think sometimes we get so far away from that, and it's good for me to be able to invite people on the farm, and they really feel like, hey, this is part of, the American farmers that are trying to feed us all.
I know you mentioned earlier before we got on the show about an event. I think the first weekend of April you've got coming up. Your produce kickoff. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So our hours will change. Kind of to go through the winter, we keep it pretty low key. But when spring rolls back around, it's funny how produce works, but it makes sense if you think about America. Florida's the hottest, so
Right.
stuff's gonna start coming out of there first. And luckily, with being able to work with this distributor, we're going to be able to offer that. And then it's funny how, the labels and everything else, it just keeps coming up, and you'll see it move up through Georgia and all. Our South Carolina peaches were a hit last summer. And then, of course, our sweet corn comes off and it goes crazy. And me and my husband get really competitive on who can sell the most sweet corn. So
Who won
that's
last year?
I won
You
last
won.
year.
Of course, he's
Yes.
not here to defend himself, so we'll go with you winning.
Yeah.
We'll just take that as a
Yes.
fact. How about that?
There you go. I like that. He's not here to argue. But another cool thing we do look after spring rolls around, we grow a lot of pumpkins, which is not something that is Eastern North Carolina. Pumpkins are kind of hard to grow in our humidity, so that's why they are mostly grown towards the mountains. Luckily, I married a farmer that can grow about anything. So we used to grow pumpkins 10 years ago and we wholesaled them to Piggly Wiggly. And then 2 years ago, I was trying to figure out how to get more people out. And it is at this point, I would say late May, early June, and pumpkins have to be planted by the 4th of July. And so I went home, and my husband is a planner. Like, if I wanted to plant pumpkins, we should have talked about it a year ago, and he'd have had it all on a spreadsheet. And then there's me. And so I'll never forget, I came home and I was like, I think I'm gonna plant that field behind Dale's. I think I'm gonna put that in pumpkins. And he was like, next year? And I was like, oh, no, the seed's on the way. Like,
Next
you need to
month.
figure out. Yes. So that was so neat to be able to have people out for the pumpkin patch. And so last year we kind of doubled our acres, and this year is going to be even bigger. And that's something really neat. And I would say the reason we're able to do it and the reason we're able to grow a really good pumpkin, my husband actually started a agriculture drone company. And I don't even think
Interesting.
me and you have had time to talk about this, but so he is able to spray those pumpkins with his drone. We use that drone for a lot of things. After the last tropical storm we had, we had 8 inches of rain, and we
Right.
had army worms eating our hay, and we raise our hay to feed our cows. And so all the farmers had army worms everywhere, and nobody was able to get in their fields. And he was able to the next day run right over the top of it and save our hay crop. So that's something really neat. So I'm actually helping him get all his stuff, website and stuff lined up. And he had originally just started doing it for himself, and now there's kind of a need for it. It's
There's
really
a demand,
neat.
yeah.
Yes, so that's something new that we're excited about. And I tell everybody I'm the most seen as far as social media with our farm, but it's funny because I'm actually like the smallest piece of the puzzle when you think about what the whole family's doing, and with our row crops and everything else. So it's
Every
funny because
piece of the
everybody
puzzle
knows
matters,
me.
though. You don't have a puzzle without every piece. And
That's exactly right.
how can someone find out about you and get more information? I think you've got an email list. Can people just go on your website and sign up for that?
Yep, and we try not to bug you, but usually once or twice a month, we'll send out our specials. But if you go to northwestlandandcattle.com, it'll just pop up and say join our herd. You put that on there, and you'll get in our email list. And then we're very active on social media, and we have all of our. You can find us at anywhere you type it in, and my phone number is on there. So usually unfortunately it's just me answering the phone. So if my voicemail is full, I apologize. But
Can
yes,
people text that number?
they can. And I encourage a lot of my customers, if there's something specific that they are about to drive out for, a lot of them will shoot me a text and just say, hey, I'm just making sure you have bacon before we drive out.
Because things do
And
sell out. I can tell you that from having gone over there and looked for things, and you would be out of what I didn't call to ask about, and I showed up and it was gone.
that's right. But the neat thing is, with us going to the slaughter or the processor every month, is I tell people we always have stuff coming down the line,
Right.
and that's really neat to where we always have it. If it's not here this month, it'll be here next month. And the hard thing is with the inventory and all, I have all these sausages. I love all the flavors. But if I only take a certain amount of pigs, I can only restock a little bit at a time. So it's a juggling act. And I actually have a paper laminated in here pretty much saying, like, thank you for supporting local. We're not Costco. We don't have everything all the time, but I've been really very thankful for the community support that I have had, and people are very, very like, okay, well, I'll try something new, and then we'll come back
Right.
next week.
Well, we've been on here a while, so we'll start to wrap this up. But obviously, you've been doing agriculture for a while now. What have you learned that you wish you'd known the day you started?
Oh gosh, um,
That
how
might
much
take
longer
another
do we
hour, so
have?
maybe pick one
Yeah.
thing.
Um, I honestly would say, and it's funny. I just had to sit on a panel in Raleigh about farm stores, and they were kind of saying the same thing, like, what advice would you give? And I think my biggest thing was don't underestimate what you're capable of, because when I started, you have to get a handler's license, and you
Right.
have to do all these things. And, you know, um, I had like two deep freezers, and I was like, I'll get one more. And, you know, I wasn't opening it up to, man, I need to plan, and I'm gonna kill it. And so I tell people, I said, just don't underestimate what you're capable of, and don't underestimate that the public won't support that. Because just like you said about food security, and I say this, COVID's a really weird topic, but it it kind of brought people back to, hey, we might need to
Right.
figure out who's growing this around us. And COVID hit not long after I had been in business, so I had to kind of regroup. And you know, I knew it was going to be a short thing, so you can't go out and invest in a whole bunch of
Yeah.
stuff. But I I just kept saying, if I can keep a percentage of these customers, we're going to be doing great. And I tell people, the public, like, they want to support you. So if you can make it convenient, if you can figure out how to ship, if you can figure out how to, you know, have what they need, they're going to come out and they're going to love that farm experience.
And I think, one thing you've done a great job of is letting the world know that you're here. I mean, it doesn't do any good to set all this up if people don't know about it. And you've done a great job marketing. You've got, like you said, a very, very active social media presence. And if I'll be on Facebook and somebody will say, "Where can I get local meat?" And half the people on there will comment Northwest Land and Cattle. So I think you've certainly done a great job with that. One question, and if somebody came up to you and said, "I'm either a farmer and a young farmer and I'm thinking about staying in it or getting out, or I'm thinking about getting into agriculture," what would you say to somebody who was debating whether or not that was the right career path for them?
That's a hard one, because now to this day, everybody's like, "Oh, do you want your kids to farm?" And I'm like, I do. It's it's one of the, you can look it up, and statistically, we are probably some of the most stressed people.
Right.
And I tell everybody, the farmer is the only one that's crazy enough to sign away almost everything every year to operate, to be able to do it again. We're probably some of the biggest gamblers out there. And on a small scale, and if you were just thinking about, what I'm doing here, that wouldn't make sense. But, on our row cropping side and on all this other stuff, it takes a lot of financial to get there, to be
Absolutely.
able to make it. I will say that people think I'm crazy, but the next 10 years is going to be, if you want to get in it, you need to get in it, because what's happening is the average age of these farmers is getting higher and higher, and there will be some family farms sold no matter where you're at. I don't care if
Yeah.
you're in Kansas right now, as you're, listening to this. There's some older farmers that the kids aren't coming back, and something's going to be done with it, even if it's just renting that land. So there's going to be opportunity there, and that's what I think everybody says it's so hard to get into, but I can just see the writing on the wall as far as what it's coming to now. Whether or not I'd want to put them all in all that stress, I think, and we're obviously not getting deep into anything, but the easiest things to get into sometimes are smaller scale produce and stuff like this. Well, people don't realize there's no crop insurance for most specialty crops. So when you talk about growing 1,000 acres of soybeans, you can get insurance for that. But when you think about growing watermelons or something for your community. There's something called NAP, and we won't get into all that, but they've got to figure out a way to take some of that stress off of these farmers to where there is some
Right.
insurance. Or I tell people we're a dying breed because we're the only ones crazy enough to continue to do this every year. You have to love it, and it's got to be in your blood because
I heard somebody once say in general terms about business owners that entrepreneurs are the only people crazy enough to quit a 40-hour a week job working for somebody else to work 80 hours a week for themselves. And I think farmers are that to a different level because of all the things you just mentioned. And most people have no idea the cost that goes into it, how much a piece of farm equipment costs, all the things you have, the fact that one storm can wipe out your entire crop if you're not careful. I think people underestimate the damage a herd of deer can do to soybeans, but that's a whole different story. We won't get too much into. But well, we've covered a lot of ground, and what I would say to everybody is, if you want to shop local and buy your food locally, check out Northwest Land and Cattle. AJ told you the website, and go by and check out some of their events. Visit her store during the hours that they're open, and it's a great place to shop. It's next door to where I grew up, so I'm certainly partial, but I'm a big believer that we need to support local farmers and local growers if we want our food to come from here in America. We started out with a personal question, so we'll close out with one. I like to ask people this type of question, and obviously you spend a lot of time in your car, so I'm going to guess you listen to some podcasts. What podcast do you typically listen to?
so I love a podcast because you get you can't listen to but the same music every day, and
Right.
I started taking it to the degree of something as I can have educational as I'm driving down the
Absolutely.
road. Um, the one I'm listening to now is not educational, but he's hilarious. I'm listening to Rodeo Time by Dale Brisby, and if you have kids, go on Netflix and you can type in Dale Brisby, and he is an awesome kind of example for these kids. And it's so funny because when the show starts, it says, welcome to the largest ranch in Texas, and he was like, I mean, we haven't checked it, but it's got to be close. And obviously,
Right.
but it's such a good influence. And I think so much of the Western lifestyle, you go to a rodeo and we're going to pray and we're going to have the American flag, and I love that. So if you have kids, make sure you check it out. And before we jump off, I didn't want to interrupt you earlier, but you were talking about how, videos and having a presence online. And some of the farmers thought I was crazy when I was on that panel the other week, because they were saying, well, who has like a plan on, how they're going to market things or whatever. And nobody, all of us farmers, nobody said anything. And I said, I have a secret weapon. And they kind of looked at me, and I said, I have a Helen. And what you don't know is I have another person on the side of that social media. And I'm very thankful to have Helen Carlton as she's my social media guru. So it's funny. She can take a 20-minute video of me and Wade making hog feed and turn it into like a 3-minute, very
Right.
cute reel that, and Wade will go, I don't think that was the same thing you sent her. And I said, I'm telling you, she can work miracles. So that's something a lot of people don't think about investing in when you're talking about farming. And like you were saying, as far as all the things you offer, it's really neat to think outside the box and figure out what as a
Absolutely.
small business, what you're good at and what you're not. And I'm not good at that. So
And most business people are, an auto repair shop owner is good at repairing cars. A farmer is good at farming. My first client was a former PGA player who was really good at talking about golf, but knew nothing about marketing and nothing about running a business. And that's why, there are certain things I hire third parties to do because I know it's not what I'm good at. And if you're spending all your time doing the marketing, you're not doing what's the best use of your time. And that's a big reason people like me are still in business, is so that we can help people focus their time on their business and not focus their time on struggling to figure out how to do a Facebook ad when we can do it with our eyes closed.
exactly. And that's so hard as a small business just getting started. You're already stretched so
Right.
thin. I mean, like you said, I mean, I would rather be feeding cows and hogs than doing anything else. but I had to teach myself to do a little bit to get by.
Do enough
But
to get
then,
by to get started. Yeah.
that's right. But you're right. It would take me an hour to do a Facebook ad, and you could do it with your eyes closed.
And I've got people on my team that can do it even faster than me, which is good. But well,
That's
AJ, thank you
right.
for joining us. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
I think that's about it. Come see us on the farm. Spring, fall's my favorite, but thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well,
And
absolutely. And thank you for joining us. And to everybody who's watching this, thank you for watching. If you want to follow the podcast, you can go to capefearbusiness.com. We're on most of the major podcast networks. We're also on YouTube. And we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.